disclaimer under Section 107 of the Copyright Act 1976, allowance is made for fair use purposes such as criticism, comment, news reporting, teaching, scholarship, education, and research. Fair use as a use permitted it by the copyright statute that might otherwise be infringing. Hello everybody and welcome to my channel. I am Afro Goddess. Please do me a favor as you enter the room and hit the thumbs up button for me. I really appreciate it. Today's video we're going to talk about the problem with consumerism. So without further ado, y'all, we're going to get into this video.
Video was made possible by the people who support me on Patreon. In 2009, South Korea did something remarkable. The country poured 2% of its GDP, some $38.1 billion US, into environmental projects, hoping to create 1 million green jobs over the next 5 years. The goal was to spur growth in a slumping economy while simultaneously creating a low-carbon society. In one sense, the plan worked. South Korea's economic system did eventually recover. But in a more important sense, the plan failed. From 2009 to 2014, Korea's emissions rose 11.8%. So despite massive investments in clean energy, railway expansion, and energy efficiency, South Korea's emissions still climbed. What happened? Why didn't South Korea's green growth strategy work? Today, we'll answer that question and more in order to understand one of the insidious specters that haunts the green energy revolution: consumption. It's December and the streets of New York City are filled with Christmas. Stores, trees, lights, bags, packages, and trash. Christmas in America is a sacred capitalist holiday wherein the average American explodes their average yearly emissions footprint by roughly 650 kilograms of CO2 equivalent, while spending a cumulative $2.6 billion on wrapping paper. Up until around 150 years ago, however, the holiday rarely saw a wrapped present in sight. But then unofficial holidays like Black Friday and department stores like Macy's started to encourage shoppers to fill their carts with tech and trinkets as a means of expressing care and love. Now, Christmas shopping epitomizes the consumer experience in the United States. It's driven by a complex mix of personal desire, social pressures, status signaling, stress, and propaganda that work in many instances not to increase personal well-being, but to pad the pocketbooks of corporations. Advertisements on Instagram and billboards in Times Square bombard us with visions of what we could be if only we had that watch or phone, which locks us into a world where, in order to find happiness or comfort or political change, we need to buy stuff. But
Did y'all see how much wrapping paper that's being bought around Christmas time? What did it say, $6.6 billion or something like that? That's a lot of money just for wrapping paper itself. Now that's crazy. Y'all better get some garbage bags or something. Hey, I don't know what to tell you. Just put the presents under the tree and don't wrap that stuff. Like, come on, man. Like, Christmas in itself is just plain stupid to me, but to each his own. But the moral of the story is that is a heck of a lot of money to be spending on paper. Oh my goodness gracious, man. Wow. Anyway, back to the video.
A range of studies consistently found that once a person's needs are met, extra consumption does not increase their well-being. And buying new phones, clothes, and gadgets all have an environmental price tag. Despite the fact that 100 companies were found to be the root cause of 70% of global emissions, the reality is that the people using those companies' products and burning their fuel are us. Or rather, I should say, primarily rich communities and countries, because consumption levels are not equal across the world. The average American uses over 100 times the energy as someone from India. And if everyone in the world were to live in the same way the average German does right now, global emissions would double. So as those in rich countries gorge on luxury items and the newest tech, they use energy and emit at much higher rates than countries in the majority world, which often are the ones feeling the brunt of climate disasters. The blame for overconsumption should not and cannot be placed solely on individuals. Companies and corporations have a vested interest in making you buy more stuff, because if they don't, they go bankrupt, which is why they slap green labels onto their products and advertise everywhere. Indeed, the whole idea of a personal carbon footprint is a propaganda campaign created by the fossil fuel giant BP. The move allowed them to lock in decades of fossil fuel use by turning the attention away from their complicity in climate change and instead blaming the individual for not living a low-carbon lifestyle or not buying the right thing. The natural conclusion in a system riddled with ads and cultural norms imploring all of your senses to buy more is that your dollar is your vote, an idea which stands in stark contrast to the democratic ideal of one person, one vote. We are led to believe that growing the economy, which for the individual means buying more, whether it be supporting new green tech or wearing sustainably made clothing, is how we stop climate change. But the reality is that this capitalist growth model counteracts the work being done to decrease emissions. Over the last 40 years, global emissions have skyrocketed despite dramatic expansions of renewable and energy efficiency technologies. Yes, growth does lead to an expansion of new sustainable innovations, but it also leads to the expansion of fossil fuel intensive industries. Just 1% growth in GDP leads to 0.5 to 0.8% increase in carbon emissions. And if we continue to grow at 3% per year, by 2043, the global economy will be 2 times larger than it is now, which means energy consumption will be larger and the task of transitioning towards a zero-carbon world will be much harder. So something's got to give, and that something is consumption in rich countries. The unfortunate reality is that expanding zero-carbon technologies to meet global energy demands, or what's known as decoupling emissions from growth, will be an extremely difficult task. A task that South Korea attempted back in 2009 and ran headfirst into the consequences of a growth-centered economy. The reason why South Korea's emissions still rose 11.8% over 5 years is that their total energy consumption outpaced renewable installation and energy efficiency projects. So the emissions they saved with green technology were nullified by their overall increase in consumption levels. So then what options do we have? One recent study modeled that by 2050, the world could support the equivalent of 3 times the current global population if global consumption levels drop 60% back down to 1960 levels. Most notably, though, the paper claims that this is possible while still maintaining or even improving a decent lifestyle for all. And within their definition of a decent living, the researchers include laptops, comfortable climate control, access to robust transportation networks, and universal healthcare. And in order to achieve this world wherein everybody is able to enjoy a decent lifestyle while also avoiding a climate emergency, the researchers suggest a dual-pronged approach. On the demand side, consumption levels must drop by as much as 95% in countries with today's highest.
Now, we do know that this ain't gonna happen, right? Right. It's not going to happen. This is the way of the world today as we know it. Things is not going to go down. Things is not going to stop in reverse. No, it isn't. Because we you need money to be rich, right? So think about it. Let's just think about let's think about it like this. Think about you're thinking about doing your own business, right? So now you're doing your own business, right? Now you're selling your stuff to people. Without someone selling something, then you can't buy something, right? So let's just say we're going to start, everybody within the household going to start making their own clothes, their own sneakers, their own gadgets, whatever the case may be. Fine. But you got to understand also there has to be someone in place where you have to buy the materials from, right, in order to make your own whatever it is that you're making. So you're going to always have to have someone that you have to buy from, whatever that is. Because I heard him say that, to lower the economy down or whatever the case may be, to start making your own whatever. Yeah, that's fine, right? And it's easier said than done, right? We all know that technology is going to get more complex. We all know as time goes on, people are going to start buying the most upgraded things, and that's whether it's clothes, sneakers, electronics, hair care, whatever. So we know what he's saying. It is okay, you could say it, but it's not going to happen. Reality check here. Reality check. Not going to happen. Back to the video.
Per capita consumers. That means no more second houses or eating red meat every single day of the week. This then must be simultaneously coupled with massive rollouts of advanced technology in energy efficiency, renewable energy, and other sectors. Together, the model predicts that these scenarios could allow the global population to live well in a zero-carbon world. And if all that sounds scary, Hope Jaron, author of The Story of More, compares this future lifestyle to that of someone living in Switzerland in the 1960s, which to me doesn't sound that bad, especially considering that everyone in the world would be able to live the 1960s Swiss life. The key point here is that reducing emissions, or what's known as decoupling emissions from growth, is not enough to quickly prevent the worst-case climate change scenario. Reducing consumption has to be integrated into our solutions toolkit if we are to quickly tackle the climate crisis before 2050. But the burden of this task should not be laid upon the individual. It's the job of governments and the very corporations who created the mess in the first place to facilitate this drop in consumption. Imagine for a moment if instead of lobbying for fossil fuel subsidies and spending millions telling us to decrease our carbon footprint, BP was required to address its complicity in climate change by leaving fossil fuels in the ground and developing renewable energy, rapid public transportation, and energy efficiency technologies. I'd imagine the task of reducing our own consumption and emissions would probably be a lot easier. Ultimately, degrowth is a path we need to take seriously if we are to tackle the climate emergency. While I can't pretend to predict the far-reaching consequences reducing growth would create, I do know one thing. The smaller our global needs, the easier the transition will be. Hey everyone, Charlie here. If you've been watching Our Changing Climate for a while, or just stumbled across this video and are wondering how you can help me make more videos, then consider supporting the show on Patreon. As an OCC patron, you'll gain early access to videos, special behind-the-scenes updates, as well as a members-only group chat. In addition, each month my supporters vote on an environmental group that I then donate a portion of my monthly revenue to. So if you want to support the channel or are feeling generous, head over to patreon.com/ourchangingclimate and become an OCC patron. If for whatever reason you're not interested or aren't financially able to, then no worries. I hope you enjoyed the video, and I will see you in 2 weeks.
like I said, easier than done. Um, just by them saying that the government has to change all of this in order for everyone to be able to live a comfortable lifestyle. You already done messed up as soon as you said the government, because we already know the government ain't gonna stop nothing. Okay, the government is the reason why we in the shit that we in. Period. Right? But like I said, um, when you're really looking at it, if you're thinking about it logically, you know that everybody on this planet can't be that equal, right? Meaning that everybody on this planet is not going to be able to live comfortably. Because that's almost saying this is the perfect world. And we know it's not a perfect world, right? We all know that the envy and all this stuff is way too high. So we all know the rich get richer, and and the poor either get poorer or they stay poor. There's no way in the world that the rich is going to allow to live amongst poor people. That's not going to happen either. So all of this talk it sounds good, but it's never going to happen, right? That's just how I feel about it. So anyway, y'all, thank you for watching this video. Don't forget to like and subscribe. Leave me a comment at the end of the video. I really appreciate it. So until next time, everybody please stay safe. Peace. Afro Goddess is out.